Welcome to Into the Cyberstate, everyone, the premier public broadcast of Galactica Network. My handle is citizen42.gala within the Cyberstate. You can call me Dave, and today I'm joined by my regular co-host, Jon Reynolds. How are you doing, Jon? Some very special guests as well in the form of Rob Sloane from TreatDAO. Going to have a great time. Just before we get anywhere, any talking done, I just want to put out a very quick disclaimer. So it's very important to remember that myself and Jon, and any team members who decide to join us on the panel, we are your guides to navigating the Cypher state, but we are not your financial advisors. Our guests' opinions are indeed also their own, and nothing said in this space constitutes financial or investment advice. So now we have that out of the way, let's have a little chat to everyone. Firstly, Jon, good to have you back up, mate. Jon is one from our BD team, and it's always good to have him up on the spaces. How you doing, dude?
Yeah, doing well. I mean, it's always nice to have multiple projects that you've worked with and all that, and there's overlap for the use case, and it's just something that I've seen Treat really needs with the privacy and identity and KYC stuff that they've experienced there. So excited to explore that conversation further.
Yeah, 100%. I can see some really, really interesting stuff. But let's just introduce him. So, Rob, how are you doing, my friends? This is Rob Sloane from TreatDAO.
Hi, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm very interested in the whole subject of digital identity and privacy, decentralized ways of working, better online, Web3, and the Cypher state sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique concept. It's a pretty unique concept. I think we can have a really good chat about that later, actually, and how real people and real creatives can make use of this kind of system. But for the time being, I think everyone should get comfortable. Also, I see we have a few more listeners now. If you guys could just do us a really big favor, jump down into the bottom right-hand corner of the space, give us a like and a retweet on this space. It would really help us get some more people in here, and it would just help us put some more information out to more people. If you have any questions during the space, please feel free to just ask a question in the comments. Also, you can request to speak. We're more than happy to have you up. So please, if you want to have a chat with us, you're more than welcome. I think I'll probably do a couple of pinned tweets during the space. I'll let you know when they happen, just so you can get some ideas of what Galactica is doing and of what TreatDAO is doing. So Rob, if you have any call to action style tweets, even now, if you wish, if you want to pin those to the top, you're more than welcome. And I'll do the same with Galactica stuff, and we can call those out. Okay, guys. So I think we'll get on with it. As always, we're going to start with some news to begin with the space, so everyone stays nice and informed. Currently, we've got a little bit of news. To begin with, we've got India. So India has actually called for a global cryptocurrency framework rather than just a national level. We're going to have they want a global level, and India is currently actually the leader of the G20. The G20 has a rotating leadership, and currently it's India. So they're looking at they're trying to make a positive impact on the global economy according to their release. And also mitigate any risks that are posed by cryptocurrency. They're calling for a responsible approach, and try and balance the need for protecting consumers with making sure that we can still foster innovation. Now, those are all very good words, as we all know, but it's the devil's in the details. And any kind of global framework needs to be truly global, for a start, and it needs to make sure we protect people's privacy, people's right to transact, and people's right to not be interfered too much with by government. I don't know what you think, guys. Jon?
Yeah, it's sort of funny to hear India say this, because I'm working with another project that's based in India, and I won't mention it because they literally say things like, the government is super anti-crypto, super trying to control everything, super against financial independence and sovereignty for citizens. So I'm personally extremely skeptical whenever a country that has those actions and history says something like this, it seems very hand wavy, like, oh, we'd love to have it, but there's not, it's just dangerous. It's too dangerous for you guys. But once everyone else gets all their stuff together and we get a new world order, then we can do it. To me, it's very strange.
Yeah,
I mean,
once we have the ability to monitor and control, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. It's interesting because if you were thinking monitor and control, you'd think of a national framework, right? For them to say an international framework is even stranger to me. Like, it has no basis in reality, but maybe I'm missing something on it.
Well, this is actually I'm not sure. Like, this is just conjecture, but it may well lead into a piece of news that came across our desks maybe 3-4 weeks ago with the World Economic Forum also announcing that they wanted to promote some sort of global blockchain-based network. So that's if as we all know, if you don't, then the World Economic Forum is kind of like it's like a club for the rich and powerful, and they they have a great deal of influence over almost all governments, and an awful lot of what they say just tends to happen. So it could just be the tail end of that, and but I don't know. It's an interesting thing. What do you think, Rob, of like a kind of a global framework for cryptocurrency regulation?
Well, I'm quite suspicious of it, and especially of India. I echo kind of Jon's words there, but it seems like it's very convenient suddenly, and India is quite well known for being quite corrupt, and also for having a lot of self-interest when it comes to how it treats money in general. And I'm suspicious as well because of the fact that the BRIC bloc is making a lot of waves recently and being quite aggressive about trying to be a buffer against the United Nations. And obviously, there are a lot of vested interests at work with India behind the scenes who wouldn't have us as the general populace, our best interests at heart. So I would actually say that if we could move towards a system of DIDs, of decentralized identifiers, and make our own data a lot more secure, then it may be possible to start working towards a kind of global framework for decentralized financial services. But we're still a long way away from that. And as Jon said, I'm very suspicious of their actual intent.
I couldn't agree more. And with the ideas, even it's all about the intent and the incentives of the people who are creating it, and why the DID systems are being created. So I'll speak. Obviously, I'm biased. From Galactica Network's perspective, we are building a DID system with the core tenets of cryptocurrencies, like ethos in mind. Decentralization, self-sovereignty, privacy, all of these things that may well not be guaranteed in a system that comes out of a traditional finance or a governmental system. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. Before we go on to anything else, and this actually does lead on to another topic that's just come across the wire, which is it's almost the opposite, to be honest. So BRICS, this is a block of countries currently: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. There are more coming, but the BRICS countries, the BRICS bloc, has decided to abandon their plans to create a common digital currency, and then instead they want to. They're talking about increasing the use of their local currencies for cross-border trade. It's almost contradictory from the previous news article. So I think there's a lot of mismatching of minds here, to be honest, because I don't think a lot of this makes a lot of sense, to be honest. So they're not entirely sure. Why, but it looks like there's just been a complete lack of progress from the the BRICS digital currency project. And I guess mainly they want to reduce their reliance on the US dollar. I think that's almost certainly the primary influence. So I don't know if you guys have heard the term de-dollarization. I'm sure a lot of people have in this industry right now. But I'd maybe just get a couple of opinions on just the concept of de-dollarization and the BRICS block in itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very hot topic. So this is something that mentors of mine are very, very intense about on the de-dollarization as a risk to, you know, the global economy and hegemony and all that. So de-dollarization is basically denominating a foreign country other than the United States choosing to denominate their trade or their debts or their investments in a currency other than the US dollar. So the US dollar's hegemony or control comes from the fact that everyone in the world basically denominates their financial activity in dollars. And the reason why they do so is because it's relatively more stable than any other currency. So the de-dollarization is basically the challenge to the US financial infrastructure. For the past, I want to say 8 years, I've seen people talk about de-dollarization and new world order currencies and commodity-backed, you know, alternatives to the dollar. Like, oh, we're going to have a gold-backed stablecoin that China and Russia are going to use. We're going to have we're going to have something that they only use for oil, for whatever. At the end of the day, I've never believed in it. Frankly, because of the reason why I said earlier, the reason why people use the dollar is because it is the least volatile denominator. It's just the best for math. Like it's one of those things where if you look at the volatility or just the unpredictability in the Chinese yuan or the Russian ruble or the South African rand or the Brazilian real, they are all absolute insanity when you compare them to the United States dollar. And I've never thought that those countries could get their act together enough to institute, let alone maintain, a global alternative to the US dollar. But hearing
Well, I mean,
them,
I guess it's very similar to the kind of problems we have in crypto, like just the fragmentation of liquidity, right?
Right. And incentives though and that's a great comparison to crypto, because at the end of the day this is a coordination issue or coordination problem, and but it's also like a volatility issue. And so I don't think that they're able to do it, and if they're doing it in local currency then it just sort of defeats the point. So I don't that seems like a huge step back for the BRICS movement, which I'm 100%.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bit of a step back, and again, like it just seems like using local currencies will just fragment liquidity even further and make things even less efficient than they already are. Rob, what do you think about BRICS, de-dollarization? Anything you want to submit on that kind of subject?
Well, it's been a hot topic for a while now, de-dollarization, and a lot of countries seem to have very local issues to deal with, very local trading partners, and obviously even the UK since Brexit, you know, has had to look for new trading partners, new ways of doing business. And I think that's where some of the misinformation is coming from, because a lot of countries have really high inflation right now. Turkey is a good example. Obviously Venezuela, which is, you know, the poster boy for that kind of thing. Russia itself, because obviously it's producing its own figures, but the most recent figures I've seen have inflation leveling at something like 60%. They're declaring 8%, but you know, Russia has its own reasons, obviously, right now, including the war in Ukraine, for producing these kind of macroeconomic figures. And I think it's just wishful thinking. I think the BRICS are trying to exert some sort of unjustified, in my opinion, new economic forum on the world, thinking that they can scoop in some of the minor countries, some of the ones which have already existing deals with China through Belt and Road, etc. And that's going to give them some kind of leverage to probably lift sanctions. I should imagine a lot of this is about trying to pressure the US. But the most worrying thing that I've kind of picked up on is that they may get their way to some extent if obviously there's another Trump presidency. You know, if he wins in 2024, then unfortunately he has a much warmer relationship with these autocrats and dictators than the Democratic Party has. And I really do worry then that we may see some quite dramatic economic shifts and volatility and instability in world markets.
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. Now, the only thing I would say there is perhaps it's difficult to say whether it would be a positive or negative if whoever the next president might be has warmer or colder relationships with this bloc. You know, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not too boned up on US politics, and I don't want this space to turn into a US political show. But it's an interesting topic, and if the next president was more hostile towards this bloc of countries and wanted to defend the dollar in a more ardent manner, or become do a bit more of the old economic warfare kind of thing. Or versus, I assume from what you were saying, if a Republican president came in and was warmer with these countries and tried to, I don't know if that would result in more healed wounds. Jon, I mean, you're a resident American. What do you think on that quickly before we move on to the next?
Yeah, I get very triggered when I think about the possibility of another Trump election, just from I don't know, a legal standpoint, from being indicted 4 different times. Anyways, yeah, I agree that it's hard to say, but the really quick, for non-Americans, the really, really quick and dirty way to think about American politics is are you a type of person who cares more about people, or are you a type of person who cares more about markets? So I'll let you work out which one's which, but yes, there is definitely one that skews more towards markets over people. But it's hard to say, and ultimately, I think it's more dependent on the BRICS themselves being able to have any sort of unified front at all, because if they're not unified, then someone like Trump might be able to get 1 or 2 deals together, but he's not going to be working with the entire unified bloc. So to me, it's all about whether they can actually unify in a meaningful financial way, because that's the sort of problem that my old econ teacher said way back in 2010. The Eurozone is not a real financial and debt union, and so it is a flawed system, and we've seen that time and time again with the fact that they all share the same currency but not the same debt. So we'll see. I'm skeptical, but it depends on the BRICS bloc themselves.
Yeah, that's completely fair take, Jon. Understood. Okay, you know what? Let's move on to crypto a bit more. So we have one more piece of news I'd just like to discuss before I dig into TreatDAO and have a really good chat with Rob about various really good topics. So that is that the SEC has actually charged a podcaster who was offering NFTs for selling unregistered securities. So this is the first time it's happened, like an actual charge against essentially an NFT project. So the project is called Impact Theory. Who raised $30 million by selling NFTs. These were called founders keys. Some NFT projects have various NFTs. So these ones were founders ones. So the SEC basically found that these NFTs were essentially investment contracts and thus considered securities. I think, so Impact Theory has actually agreed to the cease and desist order which was issued, and they've been ordered to pay $6.1 million in disgorgement, prejudgment interest, and civil penalties. That's quite the penalty, and clearly that this is an enforcement action that's actually gone through just against an NFT project, and this is the kind of thing that I think would probably serve as a template for an awful lot of NFT projects, if I'm reading it correctly. So I don't know if you guys have heard of this. Maybe we'll start with Rob this time, or if you guys, what kind of opinions you might have on this.
Well, I think it's about time. I mean, since 2020, I guess, or 2021, there have been a lot of NFT projects, a lot of influencers, a lot of people using NFTs as commodities and as gamification, as unlockables for all sorts of things. And I think the whole thing has pretty much sucked. And there have been a number of very high-profile rug pulls and a number of NFT projects that have been there one day, gone the next, with a lot of people making a lot of money and running off to the hills. And it's, in my own opinion, it's been high time that some government agencies have come down hard on these kind of criminal activities, because it's just given such a bad name to a thing. And the NFT market has been in a kind of bear market for the last 18 months, probably longer. And part of the reason for that has been pure uncertainty, and has been the fact that people just don't trust these projects anymore. So on the one side, of course, my decentralized hat says, oh, government getting involved with NFTs, government getting involved with crypto, decentralized things, not good. But on the other side, I believe it is good that we see some kind of legal systems coming through, some kind of precedents being set, and people being held to account.
In my view, yeah, 100%. I think we're too right by our pounds in crypto. John, what do you think, mate?
Yeah, I mean, look, not all of these are securities, but a lot of them are securities. Also, you overlay that Venn diagram with scammers and like legitimate fraudsters, and there's a lot of people, there's a lot of projects that are gonna have similar things. That is unequivocally true. So I echo Rob's statement, like, it's about time. As someone who has no problem professionally identifying with NFTs, I do have a little bit of a problem, personally, and telling people not in the space that I am into NFTs, because it's kind of like that taboo thing for the normies, where they're like, oh, but I hear it's just all scams. And it's like, well, no, but there are a lot of them, and some of them are financial in nature. So,
like, just a little bit of additional context. I don't think from what I've read, it's not entirely. It wasn't really considered a scam as such. It's simply that it was a project that was quite often promising value from on the back of the team.
Right. And I mean, the reason why I say scam is because it's a misrepresentation of the rights that people have as investors to go through a securities interaction without it being properly designated and legally rubber stamped as a security. Like, that is, it's not exactly what I meant in terms of scams, but in terms of like misrepresenting things, or just straight up saying, like, and I don't know if this is the case, but like, hey, if everybody works on this, like, well, I'll make money on this. It's like, that's pretty straightforward in terms of like the Howey test. So it's definitely not okay in that instance. And I 100% any derivatives or investment contract security things, like, unless you did the paperwork, like, eventually they will get to you and they will take your ticket on that. Like, that's how you hope this stuff works.
Yeah, and consumer protection is a real thing. Like, people like to laugh at it in crypto, but it's a real thing and it matters. Okay, guys. So we actually have, just before we go on to the next section, I just want to answer a quick question. We have Swissboard Mania in the chat and in the space. Welcome, mate. Thank you very much for that post you put out. That was really helpful, and thank you for just basically being representing Galactica so well. Appreciate it. So as for your question, you're talking about the UBI. So universal basic income is, just for anyone in the room who doesn't already know, something that's offered via the Galactica Network Passport. You basically hold a Galactica Network Passport, and you one of the benefits of doing that is you earn a UBI based on the value output of Galactica Network itself. So that's just a guaranteed input, It's just an income based on both the inflation of Galactica network and we say the output. Basically, the output currently would be from systems such as the Academy of Sciences, which is our decentralized public goods funding. So any project can rock up to the Academy of Sciences through the correct channels and in a decentralized manner gain funding via the protocol, using a variety of mechanisms. But the point, the end result of the Academy of Sciences, for example, is that the project gets funding in stages that's unlocked through decentralized governance. So that's value to the project. And then any of the successful projects provide a percentage of their value straight back to the UBI pool. So basically the UBI increases as the value of the network goes up, as far as like public goods and other systems as well. So I hope that gives you a vague idea, Swissborg Mania. But if there's any further clarification, please do ask again. More than happy to. I would like to just ask again, guys, if you could give us a like and a retweet on this space, I would be so appreciative of it. We're giving some good information in this space right now, and we're about to get even better. We're about to have a really good chat with Rob about privacy, identity, all the good stuff, as well as TreatDAO itself. We'd love to learn more about that. So if you can give us a like and a retweet, that'd be great, and we'll carry on. Okay, so Rob, if you're ready and if you're happy, I would love to discuss, at least find out a bit more about you and about TreatDAO, if that's cool.
Yeah, sure. About myself, I mean, I'm a career content creator, I guess you'd say. I was a photographer, professional photographer, worked with MET Art, Playboy, and Vogue, and ID, and various other magazines. I've simultaneously also had a concurrent career as a writer, and I wrote in Hollywood for 5 years, working as scriptwriter for Kings Road Entertainment, and working with various agents and actors and all sorts of people, basically churning out scripts every week. So I was a bit of a gerbil on a treadmill, but that was okay. And I've also worked variously in Silicon Valley with companies as a producer, producing things like video games, especially advanced software engineer systems for video games, like AI packages, like interfaces, APIs, with various tool sets like Unreal Engine and so on. And yeah, and I got into crypto pretty early on. I really like the idea. I love the idea of decentralization. That led me pretty quickly to Web3. And from there, it was a hop and a skip to NFTs, which again, I loved. I was actually asked by a magazine called Glass House magazine to write a complete edition just about NFTs. It's a very new thing, so I did that. And then I was having a kind of on-off DMing on Twitter with a guy called Devon, and he invited me to come over and have a look at Treat. He thought I would love the community and setup and the mission statement. And back then it was quite new. It had only been operating for, I think, 8 months. And I met Jon, which was a great pleasure. So hi, Jon. And yeah, I got to know the core team, who were very professional. And then I began to understand how DAO actually operates and the decentralized manner of that community with all the voting systems, with the council, and so on. And they asked me to contribute art, which I did, and contribute photography, which I did, and create NFTs, which I did. And then they asked me to write a magazine for them. And so that was really how I had my introduction to working with my first ever DAO and learning on the job, really, about Web3 crypto and the potential of it. And the potential is enormous, I think, for Web3 decentralized platforms and projects. It's just that it's been a difficult market recently for all the reasons we've touched on, with new regulations coming into force, with a lot of big platforms folding up because of fraud. The big shockwaves that were sent through crypto as a result of that, which then hit the NFT market pretty squarely. And so, yeah, we went through our own tribulations in Treat, but we came through it because the core team is strong. And we just kept working. We just kept our heads down and working. Now, the Treat community is also made up of content creators, of course. One of the unique things about Treat is it's very much not suitable for work, but not like some of the alternatives, which I won't mention, because even some of the platform names are pretty explicit. But they tend towards the Pornhub side of things, whereas Treat never has. Treat has always positioned itself more as a Playboy alternative, but just Web3. And that's very much how I edited the magazine, was to be like a high-class professional magazine in the style of a FHM GQ, with a lot of emphasis on the community itself. So a lot of articles about crypto news, some of the news like you just mentioned with Galactica, talk about other projects as well, and bringing in partners and bringing in like-minded people, and also featuring some pretty amazing creators. We had Stormy Daniels last year at the height of her fame or infamy, whichever you look at however you want to look at it. Obviously, because of the case that was going on in New York at the time. And she did she was really generous with her time. She did an exclusive interview, video interview, and also a pictorial set. And we also had Brittany Andrews and various other people who are kind of legendary in the adult community. And in entertainment, coming from old school entertainment, which is really interesting because we get that contrast between what came between the 1970s and up to the point where video went to streaming, and then streaming went to what we have today, which is much more OnlyFans. And we've kind of used the magazine to chronicle some of that stuff. So a lot of the information over the last 13 or 14 magazines has been kind of capturing where the adult space was and where the adult space has moved to. And I think that's probably as best I can do for an introduction to how Treat works.
That was great. That was great, Rob. Yeah. Wow. You've got a lot. Firstly, you've got your fingers in a lot of pies, and that's great. It's absolutely wonderful to see. And it sounds like a super interesting structure you've got there. So I guess maybe we'll focus on the DAO itself first. So what does the actual DAO do? Like, what's the value proposition of the DAO for creators and for people? I guess I don't know if the magazine is truly tied to the DAO or if it's just a separate entity. Can you just give us a bit more information?
Yeah, the DAO is really the ecosystem for Treat. I mean, there's a Treat token, which is the Treat coin, and that's part of a BNB network, smart chain. And that obviously holds value, and the DAO the treasury of the DAO is partly funded by the token price, the tokenomics. And then there's also the NFT platform, which has been developed over the last 3 years, I guess, since the beginning of Treat. It's gone through a lot of changes. The most recent update is probably the strongest update. And the NFT platform allows for all the traditional things, so collecting and trading, and also having a secondary market. And the only difference really between the Treat NFT platform and the usual ones you have out there is, of course, it's very much skewed towards adult content. And there's also a Treat Gaming, which is basically an online casino and has gaming sports books. And that's part of the ecosystem. It shares the same brand, but it's not part of the DAO. It's a separate entity and it's a separate company. And then the magazine is almost like that too. It's almost like a separate entity. In fact, there's been some talk about spinning it out into its own entity, LLC or another company. And the purpose of the magazine isn't just to be a community update and to obviously showcase creators' content. It's also to kind of drive the NFT marketplace in a different kind of way. It's to give it that sort of almost luxury status, which I think most other platforms don't have because they don't have a physical magazine. And the magazine is available print on demand, but it's also taken to shows and cons and events and does very well. People really enjoy buying the magazine, having the magazine as a physical proposition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I absolutely
so
love that. I think having like a physical product as a Web3 based company is absolutely awesome. Like we've actually tried doing. We're going to be doing the same thing with our passports for the people who want one. They can have the NFT. Sorry, dog. You can either have the
so
NFT or you can have the physical product. Please, Rob, carry on while I deal with my dog.
yeah, I was going to say, are you okay? It sounds like you're being attacked by the hound of Baskervilles there. Okay, so yeah, it's great having a physical product because it's something you can show at cons and events, and it draws a lot of attraction from people because people obviously want to be part of a magazine. They want to be on the cover. They want to be seen in there because it's a showcase. It's a showcase for the best NFTs because we are very selective in the kind of content we show in a magazine. It has to be, something that is pictorial, editorial, that has that sort of fashion look. And, most of the stuff is actually not what you call not suitable for work. I mean, there's no XXX content at all. All of the content is either, again, top shelf magazine, or it's even skewing towards, dare I say it, high fashion. And that's kind of where we've been positioning it. And we're also producing merchandise that hasn't quite come on stream yet, but there's a plan for a merchandise store to be part of the ecosystem. And that would add the extra value because what you see in the magazine, you'd be able to buy as T-shirts, baseball caps, keychains, bumper stickers, and so on. And that kind of lends another level to it. So it's almost like one of the intangibles with any kind of Web3 decentralized project is seeing something that gets off your laptop and enters into in real life, IRL. And that's very much what we wanted. Really from the beginning, we sort of saw Treat as a quasi Web3 project and also something that would have a big impact in real life, especially for the kind of creators we're talking about who, have, I'll come on to this later, but they've faced a lot of uphill hurdles and struggles because of the way the tech industry is, because of the way that they have to put maybe a lot more of their privacy on the line, I mean, ironically speaking, than other content creators do to actually get over those institutional hurdles of not being able to advertise, not being able to, show explicit pictures and so on traditional social media platforms. So we really wanted Treat to be that kind of support, empowerment, and somewhere they could make profit.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And I can only imagine the difficulties with adult creators trying to they follow the same model as a lot of creators, I guess, in that they're really searching for those highly incentivized, very loyal fans, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of their manna from heaven, is to be able to, have a safe space where they can interact with fans and feel like there's a sense of community around that. And a DAO is a very powerful thing if it's working as an inclusive community where people can have total freedom of speech. And I think it's a great boon. And that's kind of what we try and offer people. We're very keen to promote the message as much as we can that, an adult creator who, for instance, maybe uses AI art or uses clay or uses any kind of medium, even a writer, could come on to Treat and find a space where they feel empowered.
Absolutely amazing. It's great to provide that kind of space. So yeah, I guess it would be good to get into into the privacy and identity part of this because I'm super interested in this. I guess adult creators, they, as you said, they kind of have a lot more on their plate in a regulatory manner than most people and most creators. In addition, what we're currently doing at Galactica Network is we're trying to provide a baseline expectation of privacy to start with, and then we integrate a digital identity system and a reputation system on top of that. We can have someone who makes an account, makes a blockchain wallet, and then they can in a private manner they can communicate off chain with a KYC provider. This is like with their documentation and their blockchain address completely separated from each other. So even like the KYC provider will never know what the blockchain address of the person they're dealing with is. They can get KYC'd on chain using what we call zero knowledge technology. I'm sure a lot of people in the space have heard of that. And then you can prove to other people on chain various aspects of yourself. So, you know, whether you're over 18, whether you're from a sanctioned entity or a sanctioned country, all sorts of things. You can just prove basically anything about yourself without giving up any privacy. So I'm just wondering if that kind of system would benefit adult creators, or and in addition, what kind of systems you're currently using, or like how the system currently works within TreatDAO for creators.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of the Cypher state and everything I've read about Galactica makes an awful lot of sense and would actually benefit adult content creators maybe even more than most, and also gig workers, because the gig economy workers is another area where people have to put a lot of information out there to actually attract in work. An example would be freelancer, for instance, where they have to include, along with their bio and what their skills are, experience, they have to include things like their location, education, their voice, maybe intro videos.
Or is it just me?
Sorry,
John.
Hi, John.
Are you okay, John? What were you saying? I think John may be having technical difficulties. I'm not sure. Maybe you should jump down, John, and then maybe jump back up again.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I missed like the last 30 seconds.
That's okay. As long as you can hear us both, that's what matters.
Well, I can recap a tiny bit. I was talking about how that something like what Galactica is offering in terms of its decentralized identifier is a great thing to have for not just adult workers, but also workers in the gig economy, because I was just stating that one of the things that a lot of people maybe don't realize is how much information a gig worker has to put out there in order to attract in work. And it doesn't just include their phone numbers, email addresses, it's their location, their education, which means you can see where they studied and which schools they've been to, their voice, which means obviously now with the sophistication and the growing sophistication of AI, that it's going to be just a couple of years away where you can replicate someone's voice even from a 30-second sound file, which is scary, obviously, given ramifications for scamming, phishing, and hacking and fraud. And one of the other things which I think needs to be really made a more serious issue than it probably is right now is the fact that every minute you're online, you're leaving behind this breadcrumb trail of data. And that data isn't passive in any kind of way. It's being hoovered up and used, often used in antitrust ways by social media platforms, for instance, by advertisers, by bad actors in various countries. We all have heard about TikTok, for instance, and how it's feeding information directly to the CCP. And that's just one example. Those are the ones we hear about and know about. And I think that adult workers are uniquely exposed to this because of the fact that they're putting their pictures out there continuously on Instagram and so on. And those pictures are being used often for catfish scams, for fraud, for all sorts of cybercrimes. And it's becoming a pandemic. It's becoming an epidemic. Now you talk to people in the street and you ask people, and they have zero trust in most of the institutions, especially Meta, Google, and so on. And it doesn't help that both of them are being taken to court by the EU for exactly that, for antitrust, and for the way they're selling data to everything from government agencies, again, through to marketers who are invasively marketing, against people's wishes, to children, to people who've never once given permission for their data to be used in that way. And as I said, with the adult community, it's even more so because the effects of being doxxed go beyond simply, I'm uncomfortable with this, and I'm uncomfortable because there may be something bad happening. it gets to the point where, these people, in some cases, are actually going to be losing their career. For instance, if someone's actually a teacher by day and does a little bit of streaming by night, or creates naughty NFTs, or does OnlyFans, and they're doxxed, then it can destroy their career and have all sorts of very serious knock-on effects. So if there was a passport, a digital passport, a digital wallet, a digital mask, as I like to call it, that would help prevent that, I think that's nothing but an absolute boon, and would be something that I can see a lot of people taking up. Because as I say, you don't know who the OnlyFans girls are. You don't know if it's your next door neighbor. You don't know if it's a store owner, a doctor, a lawyer. I mean, why not? A teacher. But imagine the ramifications if they're outed. Imagine the ramifications if their pictures start appearing online with a real name, address, and location.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there. There's the stigmas, there's the lack of authenticity, the lack of provable authenticity. But Jon, I think you were unmuting a bit, so please, mate, if you have something to say, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the digital mask is a really good analogy, because currently it's like we're all running around online naked, effectively, with how much information we are just spitting out into the world and trusting, third-party data storage providers, and centralized data platforms like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, the things that I grew up with, and then Google if you really want to go a little into the crazy areas. But yeah, there has to be a choice for the individual in how much data they choose to actively disperse, instead of just leaking all of the data everywhere all the time. And I think the Galactica passport and the what's it called, the separation of like the identity and the entity is a very critical thing, because even if you're not, making NFTs, or even if you're not doing whatever, like you don't want people to know every single damn thing about you when you do something on chain. And I've explained this before to family members who don't understand privacy, and I'm like, well, currently the system is, if I pay you for a job, I can see every amount of money you've ever had in that wallet and all the entities you've worked with. And they are always shocked to hear that. Frankly, they are more shocked to hear that than they are anything else. So transparency only goes so far. For privacy, you have to at least have the choice. And we don't currently have a good choice, and that's something that is what got me really excited about this conversation, because there's a massive value overlap between the things that are being offered by each of these entities in TreatDAO and Galactica.
Absolutely, Jon. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there with choice. I think we've had 300,000 years or so of modern humanity. Like modern, I say, as we're beginning from tribes to expanding society in the way that we have. And after all that evolution of society, we are in a position where we know what works for humans. Yeah, we know how groupings of humans work together in the most efficient way. And as we're trying to move humans into a digital space, we've tried over the last 20 years or so of this being a thing. We've tried to get to represent humans on chain, and the way we've done it previously in traditional systems like Twitter, like what we're using right now, we just give up information. We give up information to prove that we are genuine human actors. But that only works to a point, and especially when we're working with blockchain. Blockchain is it's an ideal system for a lot of things, but one thing it's not good at is true privacy, as alluded to by Jon. On blockchain you have pseudonymity. So as Rob said earlier, in fact, everything you do on blockchain leaves breadcrumbs. It leaves a trail, and most people That's if you're being like, even if you're being the most careful in the world, then you leave a bread trail of some form.
I've
If
got
you're
to
not,
say, it's not breadcrumbs, it's entire loaves of bread.
yeah,
The entire thing is there.
100%. Yeah, I mean, you give a direct trail to everything you do, and that's if you're being careful. If you're not careful, like most people are, and you go on Twitter or you go on your favorite social media platform, and you reply to one of these posts that's saying, "Post your address down below, and you might receive some money." If you post your address, then you are then almost completely doxed to at least some entity. Okay, so completely doxed in real life, your blockchain address and your identity. So this is like something that we are absolutely passionate about. Is this? You have a right to privacy. You may not have a complete right to secrecy, okay, but you have a complete right to privacy, and you should expect that. And in order to get people like creatives, like adult creatives, like the people who are the creators from TreatDAO, or from anywhere else, in order to get them having a fair deal, in order to have like anyone having a fair deal on chain, they need to have this expectation of privacy. They need to have the ability to identify themselves while still maintaining that privacy, and they also need to be able to prove whatever they need to prove. So those are like the basic tenets of what we're trying to do here, and yeah, I think. I think creatives, especially adult creatives, deserve a better deal in all this. They really do.
Yeah, I'd like to say something, if that's okay. I think you're absolutely right. The choice is the most important part of all this equation. And having a self-sovereign identity, one that you choose for yourself and want to put out there, is preferable in almost every way, not just for what you do online and to avoid those loaves of bread, as Jon put it, being left behind you, but also in real life. In real life, it's a nice idea to walk into Starbucks and not have to identify by any other name but one you want to have. And that's kind of what the digital wallet can give you. That's what the passport can give you. That's what that digital mask gives you, a decentralized mask. And it should be foolproof. It should be bulletproof, because otherwise, why would you use it if it's going to be just as prone to being exploited as everything else has been online over the last 5 to 6 years? So I agree completely. Self-sovereign identity is the crux of the thing. Choice is the crux of the thing. And if it can be proven that a system can be created which is secure and bulletproof and can't be got around with anti-privacy laws, or by, again, one of the problems we're having in this conversation is we're talking, I guess, mostly to people from the Western world. Obviously, when you look east, when you look towards China, Pakistan, the Middle East, a lot of these things we're talking about are completely nullified by the kind of governance that these countries have. Autocracies, dictatorships, and theocracies, not allowing people to have simple rights, not allowing half the population to have any rights at all in some cases. And so it really is quite an insurgent idea, a revolutionary idea, because if a version of this could work, if a Galactica Cypher state could be proven to work, could be made to work and rolled out, across several industries successfully, then I think it would give an awesome momentum to people who do want to protect their privacy, and possibly would help those people to find a form or a way of life which could avoid some of the worst impulses of their governments.
Absolutely, Rob. Well said. Well said. So yeah, I mean, if you can imagine someone in where is it? In Nigeria right now, they're having a coup. Okay, so in Nigeria, they're having a militant coup, in which the government has been overthrown by a military host, and people's rights are being oppressed. Now, if you, instead of basing, like in traditional finance, the governments and the financial institutions will generally lock down funds in some way or another. In a time of desperation in any society, any centralized entity will do everything they can to protect their monetary system. from citizen uprisings, from whatever it may be. So those institutions will lock down your funds. Now, if you instead did your banking, if you were your own bank, you had the ability to both identify yourself or remain private at your own wish, and you could make sure that all your money was not in an inflationary currency. Then you would be having a much better time in that country, because you would have much better financial freedom for a start. You'd maintain at least part of your sovereignty, even if it wasn't physical sovereignty. You'd be able to maintain at least part of your physical, and you'd be able to maintain part of your financial. And indeed, with Galactica Network as an example, you'd be able to maintain your data sovereignty as well as your financial, and you'd have options. Whereas if you use the traditional finance system, you would basically, you're at the whim of a government, or of any centralized entity, really, would be a government or private, whatever it may be. There's just too many large entities, too many powerful entities that have control over our lives, and that's one of the reasons why we espouse self-sovereign control of your assets and your data. And it's going to be increasingly difficult, guys. Everyone in this room, I mean, you know it. If you weren't in this room, you would you clearly know that know this information. But it's going to be more and more difficult, especially in pseudonymous systems, even in blockchain, things like that. Your pseudonymity will not last. That needs to be known. So in a pseudonymous system, again, if you leave breadcrumbs, you leave whole bread loaves, as Jon was saying. All these things will eventually lead back to you in one way or another. Even if you're the most careful person in the world, then you will have multiple AIs, and even in the future, you will have quantum powered AIs, which will basically just troll the entire internet for any breadcrumbs it can find, and link absolutely everyone to every piece of data they can find to identify everyone everywhere they've been. So if you don't have that initial layer of privacy, then that layer of privacy, even if it's pseudonymity, will not last. So it's a bit scary, but I think the start is having this baseline expectation of privacy. Sorry, Jon, you were coming off mic.
No, I'm good. Yeah, I think it's all. I mean, I did this the other day, with the friend tech conversation. So you have to fund the wallet, right? So you have to send the money from a wallet that you have and control to a new wallet where they don't even have a privacy policy. So effectively, I realized, oh, great, now I've got to figure out my privacy stack again, because just by having activity between those two wallets, where one is managed by a centralized provider, I've effectively doxed myself. And so now I have to go back and play around with a few other things to, see what type of privacy options I have on chain. But they're limited. Yeah, it's a real problem, because it's only going to get easier and easier for software and AI to analyze and derive insights from the blockchains. So you have to assume that over time, if there is any activity between any of your accounts or entities, they will be figured out eventually. So it's a very strange reality where you have to set up and maintain these sort of silos of value where you can't have any of them interact with other ones for fear of a future boogeyman. So yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, or you could set up yourself up on one of these solutions that focuses completely on privacy, and then you'd never be able to really do anything with it, because no one will ever actually, take your money. That's the problem in a non-regulated environment. People require some level of trust, and so this is why we've created the stack that we have at Galactica Network, and with the Cypher state concept in general, is that you can prove yourself while maintaining your privacy. That's a key concept that is the only way that we can really have any form of extension of society on chain, I think. So I just want to just reset the room a little bit. We've been going on for a while, and it's been an absolutely amazing conversation. I'd just like to reset a little bit. So if you guys, we've got some new people in the room, if you could go down to the bottom right of the space and give us a like and a retweet. If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, if you're getting educated in any way, shape, or form, please, if you could give us a like and a retweet, that'd be super helpful. If you have any questions, again, please just ask in the comments, or you can request to speak. We're actually more than happy to have you up here to ask questions. In fact, we actually have one question from the comments. This one's from Sen the Slayer, who is one of our highest ranking Discord members. He's been working his way through the Cypher State campaign, and will most certainly be getting hold of one of our Galactica network passports. So if you want to check that out, just join our Discord and you can find that out. But his question is as follows, Rob. He says, do you have any metaversal virtual platform aspirations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think no at the moment, because the metaverse is yet to be proven by anybody. I think Meta have dropped, what, $3.5 billion into it so far. And obviously Apple have also developed what it claims to be a very groundbreaking headset for VR, but it's almost like they're putting the cart before the horse, because there isn't any real killer app yet for VR. I mean, obviously there's VR chat. And in fact, that's a very good question, because it brings me on to the point I wanted to make about VTubers. Now, I don't know how aware the room is of virtual YouTubers, people who actually go out of their way not to be doxxed, who don't even present their real face, don't present their real voice. They often use an AI voice. They, create everything in software, in apps, to really present as little information about themselves as possible. And yet these people are often called out by the community itself. Often YouTube, Reddit, 4chan, things like this can be as vociferous and as doxing as any other forum you can find. And once these people have been considered to be persona non grata for whatever reason, then pretty quickly they're doxed. Pretty quickly you find out about their real lives. This seems to happen as revenge, sometimes on Twitch and the Twitch gaming streams. But other times it happens because, they put forward a political point of view that people don't like, because they've made a statement about something which people don't like. And again, I think this is one of the other issues we haven't really talked about, but still comes under the idea of protecting your privacy, protecting your security, protecting your identity, is how to avoid cyberbullying, which affects millions and millions of people and has a proven link to detriments to mental health, physical health, and obviously other things like self-harm. All of which are iniquitous, and all of which, after our, as Dave alluded to, after our hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, really we should be addressing and trying to mitigate as a society. And I think that a metaverse, to come back to the original question, I think a metaverse would be awesome. I'd love to see a treat metaverse, but I think it's some way off, and again, very expensive to develop as well and to get it working properly. I think a first step towards that is to create something which, as I say, parallels both Web3, gives you sophistication of Web3, and also has a in real life parallel. I think that is, yes, it's stepping between the two worlds, but I think that for now, I think that's a better form of metaverse than having something which is all singing, all dancing, and costs an absolute fortune. Like I say, I don't think there's a killer app for it yet. I think there will be. I think something will emerge, probably a RuneScape variant or something coming out of gaming will emerge that everyone will latch onto, like Fortnite, for instance, has been pretty successful at bringing real life people into the virtual world. I think something like that will probably emerge, and with it will come along an economy, tools like the ID tools, like the Cypher State. Something that does include UBI, because I think UBI is a really important topic, one that is under discussed because of the fact that we're heading towards a future where AI is probably going to replace a lot of jobs. And I think the thing that nobody saw coming was it starts with creative jobs. I don't think anyone ever imagined that art, music, and writing would be first in the firing line of artificial intelligence.
No, of course not. And it seems like these generative models have been the culprit of that. I think most people, I don't know what most people thought. I couldn't really speak to everyone, but I personally thought something like an artificial general intelligence would be something that came out first. I take into consideration that obviously there's always a middle ground. There's always like a path to that kind of thing. And it turns out that it's these generative models which take an awful lot of the work out of the creative process. I had a conversation with a few creatives just a couple of days ago about this, and these people. There's different levels of how artists and how creatives are taking this kind of this jump towards artificial content, and these two they were upset. You know, they're upset that their efforts, their creativeness is being undermined, and sometimes, in their opinion, copied flagrantly through the scraping activities of these generative models. But I gave them a little reminder, and I'll give that same reminder to everyone in this room. It's not the final product. It's not the final product that represents your creation. It's the process. It's the process that contains your the creative spark. So I think again in the case of of adult performers like with TreatDAO, and with any other creative, having the ability to prove yourself as a verified human is something that will become more and more valuable, because with the artificial content is so saturated even now. It's going to become infinitely more so, exponentially more saturated. We're going to have, every single piece of art that you see on a TV or an ad is going to be completely artificial, because, no one cares about that stuff. It's that base level design stuff that's going to really take a hit from artificial intelligence and generative models. But I think it's the people who prove their process and make a point of ensuring that they are known as a human who derives their value from being human. I think those people will in fact increase in value. So I think like adult performers especially, I think they will have an okay time of actually doing that, because obviously their medium is generally video or images. So I think in video is easier, because obviously video is more difficult to fake, at least right now. But I think having the ability to prove that process, in the adult performers case, it's the actual video of them, or the image. I think that will become more value, because people will come like moths to a flame for something that is a genuine human interaction in an age where all you really get is artificial. So I think that's something to at least some positive note out of it. But yeah, I'm not sure what you think about that, Rob.
Yeah, I generally agree. I mean, I've been working for 2 years on an AI model of my own, which Jon is aware of, because I've been using it actually for TreatDAO, for the Treat magazine, to generate attractive art and specific content for specific features and editorials. And I've just been blown away by it. I mean, when I started using Stable Diffusion in its first iteration, it was quite pathetic. It was something which required a lot of effort to understand fully, to train, to be able to put in extensions, to be able to add embeddings and LoRa's and Lycouses and all sorts of new technobabble that I had to learn in the first instance to actually get this thing to work at all. And then after putting in my photography, training it on my photography and my previous 20 years of work, I began to see some amazing results. It began to really get my style, understand it. And now the model is not just able to generate photorealism in my style, but it's also able to, cherry pick from pretty much any style of any artist who's ever lived. And it's just scary seeing the progress. I mean, over the last 18 months, it's just gone from lemons on the beach wearing sunglasses to now being able to create images, but on first glance, you wouldn't know were not photographic. I mean, again, it's gone from artists getting upset and saying, oh, it's going to do dragons in the style of Greg Vitusky, to now photographers getting worried and saying, oh my God, it's going to replace stock photography. It's going to replace product photography. You know, why would you hire a product photographer for $1,000 an hour when you can just type in a prompt, add a LoRa to that prompt, run it through a sophisticated generative AI, and you have your product. And companies are greedy, company executives are greedy. You know, if they can do it for free, they will do it for free. If they can do it for, you know, cents on the dollar, they're going to do it for cents on the dollar. And so it is a scary proposition, but I agree with you completely, Dave, that people who have a process, a workflow, who are already quite well known, who have a flair, a style, who have imagination, who can prove their human capabilities are always going to be much more attractive than something created literally in a production line or a factory somewhere. The one thing I do worry about is misinformation, because if, again, a bad actor, a bad state, really uses this technology, then you could have news alerts appearing which are completely false, with video to back it up, you know, with indistinguishable from real life photography to back it up. And by the time you've made a decision based on that, it may be too late. So again, advertisers could misuse this, bad actors, corporates. And I think, again, that comes back to, how do we build trust into the system? How do you build trust into a system dominated by AI? I think that's a discussion by itself.
100%. It's a big discussion, but there's also an equally large discussion on how do we build trust on a system built by humans. Trust has been an issue for as long as humans have existed in any kind of sentient fashion. But like one of the things we're trying to, or one of the things I've been thinking about personally, this is not from Galactica Network's perspective, but it is about Galactica. So obviously on Galactica Network, again, I'll just reiterate, you can maintain this base level of privacy while having a digital identity and being able to transact not only with your finances, but also with based on your reputation. So you can you don't have to make financial transactions if you don't want to. You can govern via reputation rather than through just whoever has the most tokens, you know, that kind of thing. But one of the things that has as a benefit in combination with some other completely non-blockchain related zero knowledge technology is that you can have, like, one of my friends who I've been talking to recently, he's been developing zero knowledge tech that basically tags photos. So it ensures the veracity of a photo. It means it's not been edited in any meaningful way. So obviously, whenever you upload a photo or anything to any service, it does degrade a little bit. It doesn't matter what you do with data. You know, if you transfer it, it does degrade. But within certain percentage points, you can guarantee the veracity of a photo if you basically tag it with a zero knowledge proof at source. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking about right now is creating a decentralized news organization on Galactica Network, which allows people, again, so you have verified people for guaranteed because you're on Galactica Network. You have reputation-based transactions, so you don't have the financial incentives that mess up news. And then you have this veracity layer that allows you to verify the images and videos and stuff that are being uploaded. So I think that would be a really cool use case as well. Sorry, I've actually managed to turn off my microphone. I apologize. I was just
No,
signing off there.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, absolutely. I mean, sharing. So one of my favorite counter sort of points that, you know, people, when boomers say things like, "Oh, I don't have anything to hide. Like, why do I need privacy?" Like, the easiest thing is that, well, if you don't have privacy, you can't really be yourself. You can't think your mind. You can't think, you know, you can't express your true thoughts because you're worried about repercussions. You're worried about people, you know, judging you, scoring you, you know, banning you. And this isn't even like inflammatory things. You can get banned or you can get deplatformed just because you say something that the administrators don't believe in, whether it's political or financial or whatever. But, you know, having privacy is the base layer of being able to do any of this stuff truly, because at the end of the day, it has to work with our ability to operate without any fear of, some sort of centralized power destroying our lives, basically. So I'm very excited to hear about, the news and all those things that, we have ghostwriters, we have opinion writers, but they are always sort of marked by their affiliations and how they associate themselves. And it's a very interesting sort of environment that we have for information at the moment, where it's like, okay, you're allowed to talk, but if you say the thing that's against the overlord, you're no longer allowed to talk and you get wiped from the planet. So I'm very interested to see how the separation of the entity and, your identity can help bring forward more diverse thought in terms of public forums.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind
Also,
of like,
I just saw we have Pollyanny in here. We should get her up here because she's extremely knowledgeable on this stuff, or at least has a lot of good opinions. Don't want to put too many words in her mouth, but we should at least invite her if she's interested.
of course, if Pollyanny wants to come up, you're more than welcome. I'll send you an invite. You don't have to come up if you don't want to. You're more than welcome to refuse. But it's nice to know another good person in the space.
Hey, Pollyanny, good to see you. I've just shamelessly posted a link into the comments, and Art Goldfinger is my curation site for my NFTs. So if anybody actually wants to have a look at what I was talking about earlier with the generative model that I've created, AI model, and some of the art that I've created using it, they can go ahead and have a look. Just click the link and you can see my OpenSea account.
Yeah, I think it's a good time for a reminder in general, to be honest. Guys, if you could, firstly, there's a few tasks I would very much like you to do if you can. They're all free. If you could just jump down to the bottom of this space, give us a like and a retweet. And if you could also follow Rob. Follow Rob. Seems like a very interesting, very informed guy, and he's providing a lot of education on this space, which I'm always very thankful for. Indeed, I think the Treat platform. Can you just confirm that that's the actual Treat platform on the listener stage, Rob? Before I tell people to follow it.
Yes, I think so. It seems to be a main Treat Twitter account. So,
okay,
John,
cool.
what do you think?
It's always an interesting question, right? Maybe post it to your own Twitter, and then we can direct people to that.
We're all about verifying people here, guys. We don't want any funny business. But if you can at least follow Rob, that'd be great. And if you can find the official Treat profile, please follow that too. It's been absolutely fantastic conversation up here we've had so far. So guys, I just want to put out a final call, to be honest, because I think we're going to probably be winding down pretty soon. I'd like to just give people the opportunity to come up if they want. So if you want to come up and ask a quick question, you are more than welcome. If you want to request, otherwise we can put comments in the space. But for the time being, I think Pollyanny's put a comment in just saying she can't talk right now. But you're more than welcome to come up whenever you wish. If you are recommended by one of our speakers, you're more than welcome to come up whenever you want, Pollyanny. Okay. So if that's the case and we don't have any more speakers, I think it's a good time to wrap up. So I'm just going to wonder if either we'll start with Jon. If you have any final thoughts you'd like to get out before we wind down. Assuming Jon is actually there, maybe we should start with Rob.
Hey, sorry. Yeah, no, please start with Rob. I'll jump in.
Cool. Okay, well, my final thought comes back to the question that was asked about Metaverse, because that opens another kind of worms, which could be another whole discussion, to be honest. Because a Metaverse that works, let's assume that in 2025, someone launches a virtual platform and all the things align, everything aligns, the tea leaves align, and it has mass participation. It takes off in a way that people have been talking about for years, because a good metaverse should be like Internet 2.0, and it should be something that people adopt into. And then all these questions of privacy and freedom and free speech become amplified, I think, by you know, a real percentage. You know, you're talking about having to have all kinds of protections against, obviously, again, crime, fraud, age gating, you know, abusive people who are going to use that system for nefarious reasons. And obviously the fact that into that metaverse will encroach other systems that we can only guess at right now, like military systems. You know, some part of this metaverse could control drones that are literally dropping bombs on people, which makes some people culpable of murder within that metaverse. There'll be all sorts of things, both financial and especially democratic, because my love of decentralization has always been because I saw it as democratization. I saw it as a way that, you know, one person, one vote, one person has an individual point of view and the freedom to exercise it in ideal situations. And so for me, I think that everything you've been talking about with Galactica has made a huge amount of sense. I think that it sounds like a great project, very forward-looking, very much of its time. And you know, I'm pretty happy to have been part of this conversation. I think it's been a great conversation, something which has definitely made me think again and again about issues I care about deeply, which again are like personal freedom, you know, being able to create content without having to worry about being censored all the time or being banned, or you know, being treated unfairly or demonetized, which is again another huge issue in not safe for work content online, just generally. And I think if we enter a metaverse in the near future, which I'm pretty sure is inevitable, just imagine how much of that won't be human. You know, probably 99% of it will be AI. It'll be AI apps running so far ahead of us, as you said, on quantum computers, that we can't even imagine what it'd be like. So then humanity becomes the rarest commodity. It becomes value in itself. And then these passports, these wallets, these DIDs, and in fact, I would argue cold wallets as well, like you have for crypto, you know, where you have a cold wallet that stores your blockchain, your PIN, your personal identification, so that, you know, unless someone takes that from you, they don't have access to it. Because some of this information, even by storing it online, could expose you to danger. But having a cold wallet would be a great way of avoiding that. And I think that that's obviously a much wider conversation we could possibly have here, but it is one to maybe bookmark for another day. And anyway, I just want to say thank you very much for being a great host, and thank you for the space. And yeah, it's been a pleasure.
You are more than welcome, Rob, and you're more than welcome to come back whenever you want. It's been a real joy speaking to you. But just quickly on metaversal stuff, I have a very quick theory, I guess, in that, you know, if you are a human who enjoys interacting in a digital space in any way, shape, or form, you're going to have trouble if you don't have any way of identifying yourself as a verifiable human in the future, because, you know, the artificial identities they're almost indistinguishable from a human now. In the future, they will be indistinguishable plus. They will be more intelligent. They will be funnier. They will have aspects to them that we don't even have. Now, in the case of this is why I personally believe the Galactica network is in fact the ultimate metaverse, or at least the ultimate rails for a metaverse. Let me explain. So, if in my theory of metaverse is that, you know, we'll have a set of rails that people will interact with the metaverse from. So there'll be 1,000 metaverse projects, you could call them, but they could be almost anything. You know, they could be a simple game. A Web 2 game could be part of the metaverse with no issue at all. It would just be, a VR game or something, or even a non-VR game. It would still be part of the metaverse, and it could still be accessed from these metaverse rails. Now, the point is that the metaverse rails we run off, they need to be human-based. They need to have verifiable humans in that space. Those humans need to have their privacy in that space. Those humans need to be able to interact with not just finances, because finances kill social interactions. They also need to be able to run with. They also need to be able to transact based on your reputation rather than just your finances. So in the end, I think if we spun up a virtual environment based on Galactica Network, in which you could simply, use all of these features, your privacy, your identity, your reputation, to interact with the rest of the metaverse, then I think that would be the ultimate metaverse Rails. That's my theory on that. Right. I think we've actually lost Rob, which is unfortunate, but I'm glad he.
Oh, no, I'm here. Well, I don't know if you meant me when you say you lost me.
No, I said Rob. I think Rob disappeared.
Oh, okay. Well, I still see him up here, but I don't know. Yeah. No, this was great. Very excited to be able to get these two projects chatting, and I think there's a ton of value to be unlocked from the privacy from, between both of them, just for social, personal, professional, financial. Definitely looking forward to seeing how all that plays out.
100%, John, 100%. So I think what we'll do now is I'll just do the standard request, guys. We are just about to end the space now, so if you could just do us a favor by jumping down into the bottom of the space, giving us a like and a retweet. It will help get people more people get to the recording, which will in turn educate more people. And this is one of the things we try to do as a primary goal of these spaces, is to educate. We are obviously biased towards Galactica Network. We're biased towards the people we bring up here to have a chat with. But in the end, we are attempting to educate in the most non-biased way we can. But we still want you to like the space, because please, we love it. We just want to feel the love. So I guess that's it from us, guys. If you would like to check out Galactica Network and find out what we're up to, the best way is to check out the Cypher State campaign. I've pinned it up top. You can click through there, join onto our Discord, and we're more than happy to help in any way we can get you all set up. Basically, the Cypher State campaign will allow you to just get your Cypher State to get your Galactica Network passport early, and this is probably the best way to get access to the universal basic income as quickly as you can, as well as be able to govern the protocol, as well as be able to run a validator. Everything kind of runs off becoming a citizen of Galactica Network. And that is a primary concept, because this is the first citizenship to a blockchain in history. There is no other. There are other concepts that have been called citizenship, but none of them are actual citizenship unless they don't just have a financial base, but also a social one. So my apologies, my dog again. I will wrap this up now. So thank you guys very much for coming. There will be another space. This time it will be next Tuesday at 9 o'clock UTC. So thank you very much for coming, everyone. I hope to see you on that space, and we will see you on the next episode, guys. Thank you very much for joining us.